Have we muted notifications? That's another good thing to do. Okay, so we're live. I have my. I'll stick like glue inside your mind. Just watch me. Oh, there we go. So
that was exciting.
Dan, I know that was super exciting. We're playing with we're doing this on StreamYard, so full disclosure, testing this out for the first time, and I like it. It gets us live on Facebook and on LinkedIn, so pretty cool.
Oh, Facebook too? I better tell like my great uncle to log off for a little bit. Who knows what I'm going to say?
I mean, that's half the fun, right? Of getting you onto one of these lives is what's going to happen when Daniel gets online. So cool. Thanks everyone for joining us. Today we're talking about sales and marketing. And honestly, it feels like kind of like one of those age-old debates, if whether or not you need direct sales and sales in particular or marketing, and what's the value of having both. I feel like anytime there's layoffs at a big company, marketing is the first to go and then sales, which you'd think should not be how things go, because you're going to need sales to get out of whatever rut you've gotten yourself into where you're doing layoffs. But there it is. So anyway, Dan, you want to do an intro?
Yeah. My name is Dan. I am the founder of Sales Enable. We are a sales automation company that is just over 2 years old. We, as odd as it may sound, we had our breakout year as a company last year and had a pretty steep growth curve. This year, we're continuing to grow, having a really good year. And what we do is we help companies accelerate their prospecting through technology. Help set up technology stacks that make salespeople more efficient, more effective, and increase the bottom line.
Nice. That's a great pitch.
Thanks. I've been working on it. So
no, it's good. It's good. And for those of you that don't know, I'm Andrea Borcha, founder of Dia Creative. We are a digital marketing agency. We primarily focus on startups and small to medium-sized businesses, helping them with fractional, flexible, and transparent marketing, which works out to about, between 1 and 40 million in revenue. We're a perfect fit. And I thought that this would be a great way to bring this together, because Dan definitely works on more of the sales side, and we work definitely a lot more on the marketing side. So, I mean, my thought is first we kind of need to define what the bright line is between the two, because I don't know that it's always very clear what the difference is between sales and marketing.
Becoming even more gray, right? It's certainly becoming more gray, where I'm feeling and seeing that salespeople and sales leadership are being let off the leash a lot more. Budgets are increasing for sales-related tools and resources, which are things that previously were owned by marketing. Marketing does all the technology stuff. The salespeople just own the conversations. That's certainly shifted over the last maybe 5 years, where now salespeople are vetting, testing, experimenting with new technology, and as a result have deeper pockets to play with that stuff, because they're so close to revenue that you can let salespeople be slightly more unbridled than a marketing person.
Yeah, I'd actually say there's another side of it too that's also getting more gray. As you mentioned, the conversation. The sales owns the conversation, where marketing usually own the messaging. So like, what are the sales points that you should be saying? What should you be promoting about our product or service? Like, what's most relevant to our customer base? But I kind of feel like that's kind of shifted into more of a conversation. Sales is coming to marketing and informing what's working. We've kind of moved the split A/B test, which is very typical of marketing, and moved it into the sales channels and said, try these out, let us know what works, and then let's alter our overall messaging based on how your sales are going. So even that's become a great.
Creative, it's for sure it's absolutely bidirect. I think the best situation is like bidirectional, right? Where like, each side is learning dynamically and predicting dynamically and instituting technology that helps move those causes forward, so that it takes the guesswork out of both. Whether it's like performance or it's copy and message, sales performance or copy messaging, which respectively sales and marketing will care about. you know, there's some technology-based backstops that you would set up to manage and measure both, so that, you know, the marketing director isn't banging on the office door of the sales VP going, what's with this? What's with my leads? My leads aren't being followed up. You know, Jim over here is playing Minesweeper. Do people still play Minesweeper? Is that?
I don't think that's a thing.
Am
anymore.
I dating myself by playing that?
But to be fair, I don't know what
Bejeweled. No, that only advances me 10 years by saying Bejeweled. Your Jim is playing COD out on the sales floor and not working leads. Meanwhile, Jim has like an Oculus VR on his face, and he's sure enough, he is like playing COD. But maybe he followed up with all his leads already.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've got some free time. I'm gonna go like fake shoot some people.
I think that's been the most impressive part of the technology, though, right? Is everything that you're doing, you know, with your agency and how you're setting things up is technology that you can respond to 150 people in 30 seconds, when before you actually had to manually do it all. And you can even customize all your messaging, right? So it's like each message, you can send 150 personalized messages. And then, yeah, you can go game for an hour, right? You've earned it.
Well, yeah. Well, the great thing is also consistency. So you know, when you're using technology, you can level the playing field. You know, when I started a portion of my sales career, there was this gigantic delta between the top selling person and the noob or the first year salesperson. And you're always kind of looking up, wondering like, what are they doing that I'm not doing? What is their language? What are their tactics? And it was almost like those things were trapped in a black box, and you couldn't get at those if you were a new person. Eventually, maybe you'd get behind that door. But when you're open and transparent and you're learning, and marketing is sort of helping like expose those things and create like more of a consistent level playing field, then the salesperson responsibility changes. It's not like coming up with that like magic combination of things to make the thing go thing, but it's more how do I continue to fill this funnel? How do I, you know, accelerate it? How do I optimize different pieces that I do have control over while maintaining, you know, the sort of like the status quo, and do a better job of reporting back to marketing so that they can push the right buttons, or to the sales enablement manager and director to, you know, discuss technological functionality to improve pull through. That to me is like really where sales has sort of moved. It's become less of like, who's my slickest, smoothest, silverest tongued person, to I actually interviewed somebody from Seismic, local unicorn, a couple years back when I was just founding this company, and they said something that shook me to my core as like a person. They said that their top salespeople, and they had a lot of them, they still do, were always their best writers, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like, how are you creating consistency, allowing for creative writing, and systems that like, you know, promote the ability to write. That like blew my mind. You know, because I'd always thought of sales as being like, well, you listen to like the Gary V's, and like, yeah, he'll throw in a couple swear words and then say grind or die. Voila, you've got like a conference.
Yeah, but that's like Wolves of Wall Street type old time sales thing. I mean, I think that's honestly why you're seeing this huge amount of people moving out of sales, right? There's all these articles right now that no one wants to be in sales because they're expecting it to be this like ride or die, aggressive, get on the phone, cold call everyone, get rejected 1,000 times and not want to go home and, you know, drink yourself to sleep. Yeah. Like that's a depressing way to live. And that's, I think early in my career, I moved more towards marketing because I was like, that sounds awful. I'd rather be more of this like mass creator. And so when I was trying to figure out what the distinction is between sales and marketing, for me, I kind of broke it out towards marketing, I think about it from the customer perspective or client or whoever you're trying to focus on. And for me, it feels like marketing is the entity that makes sure that we are surrounding the customer. So somehow they know we exist because they've subtly seen us in the press and on social and in an ad. And somehow they're like, I've heard of this tequila like 15 times and I don't know why. It must be out there. Whereas sales does the direct conversation. So it's like more like recreate this universe, but you need sales to kind of be like, remember that thing you kind of heard of a bunch of times and you don't know where? I'm here to offer it to you. Aren't we like best friends now? Because look what I just offered you.
Usually after 15 margaritas, I'll say, tequila. I've heard about it about 15 times.
So all we need to do is just pass out a bunch of margaritas.
No, but what you were saying before with like, the challenge of going into sales. Yeah. A lot of people have been burned because, there's a lot of companies that are sort of slow to, evolve and adopt modern practices and still buy into the old adage of, we're going to look at our sales team quarter over quarter. The bottom 20% of these suckers are just going to get like wiped out. And next quarter, we're going to ask, what have you done for me lately? And the bell tolls for thee, or whatever that quote is. But I don't know what that quote is. But like a couple of years ago, like there's some data around it too. 60% of reps miss quota in this entire country. SDRs, the 60% miss quota. That is way too high a failure rate. Like, or imagine if like 60% of 60% of all accountants like fudged numbers. You would have just like a crazy like dystopian landscape of broken companies.
Yeah.
And so now, like, is that really where the gap is? You have like 7 million open sales positions in the US with only 2 million applicants. Is that 5 million gap? Is that people that are like, sales? No, you can't trick me. I know that's a trap. Is that where the 5 million people is? Is it, people that know or feel or have heard experiences or experienced them themselves in sales and know that it's a people blender? Could be, but that seems like a pretty big number to me. It's
massive. It's intimidating.
Yeah. In one way, it's actually taking shape that it's affecting marketing. I spoke to a CMO yesterday that expressed that they are crushing their goals from a demand gen standpoint, crushing them. Couldn't be better. However, their growth is moderate or modest because they can't find enough sales staff to grow faster. They're throttling their efficiency. They're throttling their volume of MQLs generated because there's like a usage gap. If they threw more at the sales team, the amount of sales wouldn't increase because they're maxing out bandwidth and they can't find new talent.
I mean, I believe it. I think there's a big difference between the perspective on marketing, right? Looking at when you had a choice to go into sales or marketing, if you wanted to be kind of in this area, it was marketing is creative and fun. And it's also kind of different too, because being a digital marketing agency, one of the top resistors we get when we're talking to potential clients is marketing feels like it's something like anyone can do. Oh, I can post on Instagram. Why is that so hard? How hard could it be to run a couple Google ads? Like, whereas sales, I think, has always been like, no, I can't do that. Nobody wants to do that, And so it actually seems a little bit easier to kind of get into sales because you're taking something off of someone's plate that nobody wants. Whereas marketing, it's the other way around. But that might also be why like there's such an influx of marketing. My experience more has been clients complaining about marketing agencies that have burned them, that don't actually know what they're doing. And we have to come in and make it better and make it a nicer experience. But hey, we got a question from a viewer. So I'm going to throw that up there. It says, from a B2B perspective, sales are more important than marketing. And from a B2C perspective, marketing is more important than sales. What do you think? Dan, you want to start us off?
Oh, Manish. hitting us with the gold question right out of the gate, man. That is good. You know, one thing I will say about that is from a B2B standpoint, and we work with a lot of like high ticket B2B companies. Companies have gotten away from at least attempting to generate relationships from sales. And that is a mistake. To Manisha's point, absolutely, in the B2B sales process, specifically for high ticket, more specifically for high ticket, you should be learning about your prospect. You should be learning about your clients. You should be understanding their problems, their challenges, the competitive landscape that they face. And that's how new business is won, and that's how referral business is earned, is generating relationships. So in that token, like if you're truly tapping into relationships as a sales objective, then Manish is 100% right. You know, you can, from a B2C standpoint, the sales cycles are shorter. You know, depending upon what you're selling, of course, you could be talking about selling a $2 widget, and here we are. You know, how does a salesperson engage? You know, you're looking at rebuys. You know, how do we generate rebuys in the B2C space? But yeah, I think that Manish is a pretty smart fellow here with this question.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. When you were talking about your example about top seller, my first thought was not necessarily that he knew the slick things to say, but that he or she actually had built the relationships that only come with 20 years in sales in the same industry. Like, yeah, you might have jumped from one business to another, but it's still the same customer base. And you can, at that point, it's all relationship selling. And that's what, you know, core of sales and the kind of like the good side of sales, the kind of sales that people would want to get into is relationships. That's like, you know, golf course deals and fancy steak deals. And by the way, I've run up dollars in meals deals, you know, that's sales. That's where marketing things. Uh-oh.
That's changed though. So, you know, over the last year, I've worked with some companies that have made a transition from face-to-face. I'm going to buy you a steak dinner. We're going to get drunk and talk about our problems kind of selling, to how do we like take relationship selling and move it to the digital arena, because out of necessity, right? Nobody wants to see anybody in person anymore because we're all virus carrying.
Yeah. But I think once you have the option to have a steak dinner again, that's definitely coming up. All I can tell you is there was a big difference between marketing conferences and sales conferences. Sales conferences were like fireworks and red hot chili peppers, and you know, like everyone.
Salespeople party harder.
Oh, so much. It was like Oprah, like you get a car and you get a car and you get a car. Marketing, on the other hand, is like, here's a bunch of analytics. Like everyone's doing problems. We're going through tech stacks. We're like figuring out, because that's, so back to Manisha's question. And the reason I kind of still left it up is I feel like that's where marketing gets a little bit more interesting in the B2B space, is because of all the analytics that we bring in. And I agree that I think for the most part, sales has been stronger in B2B and marketing stronger in B2C, but I have seen B2B companies that are using marketing are getting in better and faster because there's not a lot of competition. Because you're right, B2B kind of tends to ignore marketing. Whereas B2C that's doing direct selling rather than so much marketing are growing a lot faster. So I almost think if you take that same strategy and switch it where people aren't used to it, it does really well. Like I've gotten down some sort of an algorithmic funnel where I keep getting hit with agency ads. So B2B, specifically in certain verticals.
I'm sorry.
So these ads are good though. I mean, and I can see how they work, but that's a B2B space. That's a pure marketing play. That's not sales, right? And B2C, the few clients that we've had that actually have a fantastic, customer support acting as sales, where they directly reach out to people and they close them, they answer all their questions. We have a company that sells welding supplies, and so helping people with their welding problems is like more of a direct sales, I'd say, than marketing, and that helps them close. So I think there's definitely an opportunity to kind of flip the script and do something new, right? I mean, that's the biggest challenge, right? Everyone's bored. They've already seen the 15 sales letters you've already written. They've seen the 15 ads we've already done. Everyone's heard the ShamWow guy. They've all, like, they know how to say it's like, while supplies last, and that's not all. That triggers something in every human being. So you have to come up with something new every time.
Well, that's it. So a lot of people will feel this sentiment, but you always have to be experimenting when you're performing outreach, because I can say firsthand the things that we were doing 6 months ago, some of those things absolutely flatline today. Tactics ebb and flow. Things come in and out of compliance grace, or you have to find workarounds for things. But it's always about finding like the next thing or the next line of communication or delivery mechanism. Not necessarily like I know a lot of people, and especially HubSpot, talk about like going channel wide, and like if they've got it, hit them on it. Where you're serving like hitting people with TikTok DMs and WhatsApp messages. Personally, I'm a little bit more conservative. Like let's do better with the channels that we feel like are core, instead of rooting people out of like their underground cellars where they come out with pasty skin, they've got long incisors, and they're like, why are you messaging me? I'm just a vampire here on TikTok. Let me be a creeper. I don't need to be messaged here. I kind of feel that way. I almost like have a little bit of empathy for people that just want the sanctity of their like guilty pleasures from a channel standpoint. Other people think differently. Hit them everywhere.
Well,
hit them where it hurts. But
I think that's actually probably more. So for me, that more has to do with like my client base. So 40 million in revenue a year. That's actually a place where I tell them to streamline, because you can't be everything to everyone, and you're not going to be able to pull off everything. It's on the channels that do you best. I think the only time that doesn't apply as much is when you get to these behemoths that already have, a 15-person team on Facebook ads, Instagram ads. They've broken everything down into different types of Google display versus Google search, and they've got all these different aspects all coming together, then okay, I could see them creeping on people on TikTok. Maybe it's all part of the experimentation too. It's just, and the algorithms that we're getting. I mean, the data on everyone kind of suggests that maybe people want to be reached out to in their own world, whatever that is. People are kind of people are kind of segregating, right? There's the TikTok people, the Facebook people, the Instagram people, and you got to learn their own language. You got to be in their platform. You got to understand their platform, because if you break those Reddit rules, you're getting kicked, attacked, right? So it's. I think it's a lot more complex than more complex.
It is. Even prospecting, direct prospecting has become that way. So the best, and it's kind of like a tried and true like statement. I'm not saying anything groundbreaking, but like bringing actual use cases into prospecting is always effective. Saying, I know that we can do the thing for you because the thing has been done like this before, and this is the direct result that you would find. It's not a new way of communicating or speaking. It's just hard to do at scale for a lot of companies. Creating personalization to the point where you're working in real live use cases is challenging at scale. It's challenging to personalize on that level. It boils down to, how good your data is. Can you trust it? Trust it enough to take some risks from a personalization standpoint. Right. You might be thinking, well, shoot, Dan, why don't you cut out automation altogether and just directly go after people with use cases? You could do that, but you'd also, in some instances, have to work around the clock to meet your goals and your quota. The amount of touches it takes this year to earn new business is ever increasing. It's increased by 200% in 10 years. So the amount of leads you can work with just the amount of tasks required in earning just a prospect, earning a first call, doesn't lend itself to spending 30 minutes writing an email. It just doesn't. For some companies, it pencils out. Like, hey, we sell $1 million thing, and we just need to sell 2 of them a year. We can have 10 salespeople chasing 2 deals a year and still make the numbers work. Have at it. Be small. Think tiny. Think, how can we get 10 of these out a day? Maybe that works for you. But for a company that needs to earn 100 clients a year, even in the B2B space, maybe you still need to funnel through thousands of touches on a daily basis to reach 100 deals. So there's a balance there of like, how can we personalize and get scale at the same time, and do it in a way that it's not like bastardizing our business, making ourselves look silly, and also like aligning it with goals, thinking about our goals. Like, we just need 2 of these deals. Okay, cool. Like, let's just send 10, Pitbull salespeople to just write some really personalized emails every day.
Yeah.
And we'll get there.
Yeah, I think, so we just got another question that I actually think fits really well with what we're talking about. Is sales and marketing always seem to benefit more from being integrated, but they have a bizarre delineation. Are there any pointers for keeping sales and marketing in step within a brand for a better symbiotic relationship? And to me, I think that's exactly kind of what you're saying. Is like, especially with 5 million short in sales, marketing does kind of have to fill in the gaps. Marketing does have to do a lot more of that top of funnel awareness and lead gen, which typically has been where sales has been, warming up the leads, even with our own, funnels, with our automation, so that when it gets to sales, then all you have to do is close and do, work your magic. So to me, it does kind of feel like they have to fit together because there's just too many gaps one way or the other.
Yeah. The 2 things that I've seen that really get a sales team on board with marketing efforts are, 1, providing context. So having the appropriate context on leads generated, briefings, whatever it takes to like catch a salesperson up to immediate speed. The other is predictability. So there are some modern predictive analytics and predictive sales tools that really can advance the urgency of salespeople and also give the right preconceived notion about leads. So and it's even available with dialing. We have a client that does telephony predictive, which is really interesting. So on the fly, you can learn a lot about the background of a person and find their propensity to sell. That changes everything, right? From a sales standpoint. I, as a sales manager or sales director, can now round robin based on other factors that might have previously not been available, like the likelihood of a particular sale. Maybe I can even learn some behavioral data that helps me match based on my firma, my demo, graphics of my sales team. And also I can, as a manager, I can make some executive decisions what day of the month it is. Maybe it's the 28th and we need to find 10 sales. And all of a sudden I go into omnipotent, I can't say that word. You say that word. But you know the word I'm trying to say. That one. Omnipotent mode, where I just say, hey, listen, Jen, you've been the hot hand all month. I'm going to ride this show pony all the way across the finish line. You're getting all like the hot urgent leads from here on out because we've got to hit this book. Yeah. And if these other jokers can step up and close these like soft content leads, like these positive replies on LinkedIn, and turn it into a deal, gravy. But having that like control is a breath of fresh air for sales teams, and marketing really has not only the ability but the responsibility to properly tee up sales using some modern tools and some modern intel.
Yeah, I actually think that leads into another question that came up, another one from Manish, but specifically about data. Yeah, no, he's a fan now. But specifically about data analytics, because I can tell you on the marketing side, you have to be data driven now in marketing. It's not like it was 20 years ago where you put up a billboard and hoped 100,000 cars drove by. It's like every view is tracked. So our KPIs would be like return on spend across all channels, revenue, average order value, lifetime value of customers. Like those are the ones we kind of really build our entire marketing value on. Sales side.
You cut out a little bit there, but I think I know where you're going here.
Like, what are your KPIs and data? What are your core KPIs that you have to absolutely abide by in sales?
So one thing that I think is so critical right now is, we've been talking a little bit about like a talent gap in sales. How do we maximize? How do we make time efficient? Are you conducting like usage studies of sales teams to understand where they're spending their time, where their optimization points? And you can actually back that into what we should do with different types of leads based on sales usage. So let's say, for example, that a portion of my sales team is spending a lot of time working content leads, gated leads. They come in downloading a white paper, and maybe they only convert at like 3% of the time. We want those deals, but the 97% of the time that we're not earning business, we're using it's a time efficiency gap for us. It's a major like blind spot and an optimization point. The decision that could be made between sales and marketing is, how do we take this content lead in an automated way, or a less soft hours invested way, and increase the heat so that it's not a burden on sales to try and find the business that 3% of the time. How do we take that 3%, turn it into a 12%, even if it takes us an additional 4 to 6 weeks to do it? That I think is like a critical measure with what companies are facing today in struggling to bring on, sales staff. Usage, maximize usage.
Yeah, and then people stop feeling like people. I think one thing that the pandemic has really awoken in a lot of people is that they want to feel valued. They want to feel like they matter. They don't want to just feel like, cattle or just like a cog in the machine. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of sales teams were built like a cog in the machine. I remember like one of my first job interviews long time ago was a cold calling center. And I lasted about 20 minutes and I was like, nope, I'm good. But they know it. They know that they're going to burn everyone out. They're like, yeah, on average, people were staying 9 to 12 months and then they were burned out.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really excited to see that sales is changing, that it's becoming a lot more sophisticated and a lot more valuing the individual rather than just making them into, honestly, bots can replace all that stuff anyway. And they already are. I mean, how many freaking bot calls do you get every day for my?
I was gonna say, like, people are not good at that role, like from a percentage standpoint, the success rate. But robots are really good at repetitive tasks where you need to shut off your like intuitive brain. There's already literally exists today. There are already tools that will automate responses based on what you say on the phone and have a logic tree built behind it. There is already voice modulation tools that allow you to record somebody's vocal language for 10 hours, turn that into a real voice, and edit it on the fly by changing literally in text to voice, make edits. We're very close to having a fully holographic salesperson that does not exist, can think and rationalize and make decisions based on data and not intuition or instinct, and handle tasks that people in sales hate doing. And that, I'm going to call my shot now. That stuff is being pushed to the forefront right now. AI is finding its way into sales right now because companies are left without another option. How do we fill these seats? How do we put a butt in a seat that can handle 100 calls in a day? A person might not be able to do that. But if you can properly build AI and tools that can orchestrate that, now you're talking. Now we can wipe out call centers altogether, at least the tip of the spear. And SDRs might be sent packing. Or we can optimize one SDR to do the work of 12. That's the immediate future that I see. I don't think it's 10 years from now. I think it's like 10 months from now, we're going to be like, Dan was right. He knew it. Salespeople, they don't like doing this job, and they told us that, and robots are happy to do it.
Yeah. It's filling a need, and that's always the biggest driver of innovation is when there's a need.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And right now, like, it's sales right now is brute force, right? Like, companies are trying to solve this puzzle. Like, how do we crack through all this noise? How do we disrupt? Like, I have to hit somebody with 25 touches just to get a first meeting. How is that scalable? And I'm just going to keep doing it. 25, who cares? 30, 40, 50. I'm going to hit someone with 70 touches over 2.5 years until they say yes to a meeting. It's like there's going to be a flashpoint, right? Where like this number of touches to earn a meeting is continuing to rise. When is it just no longer possible? That time will come in the current climate, where it's like,
it might.
You can throw 1,000 touches at Andrea. She is not going to budge on mobile app development as many times as you push her, and that brute force will reach a flashpoint.
Right.
I've heard it from Nostradamus himself.
It's because marketing does that 1,000 touches. I think that's where marketing comes in. I think because marketing does that 1,000 touches, but in a lot more subtle way than brute force. And so you just you're like, how come I've heard about this thing so many times? And I think that's that kind of symbiotic relationship coming in again, because sales shouldn't be hitting people 1,000 times. That's exhausting on both sides. I don't want to be hit with a direct response, and I don't want someone to have to hit me 1,000 times. Like, I'd rather take my floor when late at night in bed, if I'm randomly on my phone, just kind of seeing where things are going. Like, I can explore and I can read. Someone texting me at 10:30 at night being like, hey, doing the whole thing. Okay. So today, would you recommend sales or marketing? That might just be each of us saying exactly where we are.
Well, listen, there are like plenty of pros and cons on both sides. I think from a sales standpoint, is sales a great opportunity today? It depends on a lot of things, right? Like, you can find higher pay scales right now in sales. Like, if you have some good experience, you could probably walk into some pretty cush sales jobs right now because there's so much available. There's so much out there. So if you're looking for to make a career change and you're a subject matter expert on something, shoot, you should shake some trees in sales just to see what's out there. Would I become an SDR today? that would depend solely on the company itself. There are some companies out there that give their SDRs every chance to succeed, every chance to grow and accelerate and make a career. And those companies are really sought after. And there's a few of them out there that people could probably name off. Those are the places I would start a sales career. If there's a small shop, no offense to small businesses, because I am one, but mom and pop shops that are looking for like entry-level salespeople might not have the proper way to set up somebody for success. They might have some technology. Do they have training? What is the path? How can they farm and grow talent? All those things would need to be asked in advance of that. So, sales is still a great career. A lot of people knock it and say, maybe 10 years in, I'll fall into sales. And a lot of great salespeople do. Maybe they start off as like archaeologists and they're not discovering any bones or like relics. So they're like, I'm going to try sales. And that still happens a lot. But I think now it's interesting. It should be interesting to a lot of people that have some subject matter expertise.
Yeah, I feel like what you're saying kind of goes back to that age-old advice is pick your boss, not your job. Is pick who you're going to be working with and what your lifestyle is going to be, because that's probably way more important than if you're working for one company or another. And I kind of agree with the small business thing in the sense of the workload is usually more, but I think that's why small businesses are our ideal client on my side from marketing, because we fill in and support with technology and expertise all the way around someone that's doing this full time for their company, just to kind of support them. And I kind of feel like you kind of do the same thing on the sales side. So even if they were a small business and they hired one salesperson, you come on with enough technology and lead gen and direct sales access that they can just kind of do what they need to do without having to be part of this massive company with all these perks. I mean, I love marketing. I think you get a lot of creativity. I think it's much more macro than micro. And so maybe that's kind of really the choice, is if you like looking at things more from a macro level, and understanding the entire landscape, the different analytics you can get from different platforms, understanding how all these platforms fit together and feed each other. Because especially right now with this iOS update, we've had to do quite a bit of pairing Google ads with Facebook ads, with YouTube ads to get a better picture of who our customers are and track conversions. Whereas sales feels a lot more micro. It's like all that macro stuff's getting done, and now we're doing the more individual outreach and connection. So maybe that's how you answer that question. Well, cool. Dan, any final thoughts on sales versus marketing?
I think that we've covered a lot of ground. I think that also look for a continuing, I think, especially in the B2B space, marketing is owning the data, sales is deployment, and really it is like combined forces that, that really matter. We see plenty of companies that are light on one side or the other, and they falter. You need deployment of data and education and learnings and intel. You also need to learn those things to properly set yourself up for success on the sales side. And then and the robots are going to take over. I mean, that's really the long and the short of what I've said today. To be fair,
AI and bots are both really heavy, and analytics, all sorts of personalization, like that's really heavy on the marketing side and the sales side. So I tend to agree. I don't know
it's trickling down from the enterprise, right? Like it used to be only the enterprise knew things about people and activities and behaviors. But
everything's getting a lot more accessible, and technology is making it. Like a small business, you can know just as much about your customers as IBM does, or Disney. Maybe not Disney, but IBM for sure. Yeah. I think we have a lot of opportunity there. And I do tend to agree. I think sales without marketing or marketing without sales, you're not you're not fully exploring what your business can do in the marketplace. So you do kind of need them both to come together. And there is definitely a distinction. And so hopefully by watching our conversation, you've learned a bit more about the distinctions between sales and marketing. So we'll be posting this on Dia Creative's LinkedIn page and on our Facebook and website. So check us out at diacreative.com. And thanks, Dan, for joining us.
Anytime.
Awesome. And Dan's website is salesenable.us.
That's it.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Speak soon.